poor lady must be freezing. They would have to take her up to the next inn. Geneva glanced at the Trace ladies, wondering if it was within her powers to decide that. They'd asked her to come on this journey as their lady companion. "For you've had such adventures," Thalia had exclaimed, but her precise duties had never been specified. Anyway, Geneva knew her employment had been an act of charity as much as necessity. The ladies had known she was uncomfortable in her stepmother's house and offered escape. She wanted to reward them with good care, however, so what should she do here? Her neck was protesting the angle, so she straightened. Perhaps Hockney, too, wasn't sure he had the authority. She shrugged and gathered her cloak from the seat beside her. She despised ditherers, and what choice was there? She opened the door and climbed out, gasping as the icy air bit. She shut the door quickly before too much of the warmth escaped, then swung her cloak around herself, pulled up the hood and fastened it. The thick blue cloak was a gift from the Trace ladies, and the most luxurious Geneva had ever owned. It was even lined with fur. Rabbit, to be sure, but fur, and in this situation she appreciated that. She wished only that she'd remembered the matching muff. Tucking her hands under her cloak, she hurried over, feeling the cold already nibbling through her thin-soled shoes. The woman turned, showing a pretty but sharp face framed in rich dark fur. She looked Geneva up and down. "Who are you?" Well, no wonder Hockney was hesitating. There was a saying about not looking a gift horse in the mouth. Of course, the sable-trimmed woman probably knew rabbit fur when she saw it. "This is Miss Smith, ma'am," Hockney said in a flat tone. His long face was chapped with cold, and an icicle was forming on the end of his nose. "Companion to Lady Thalia and Lady Calliope Trace. Miss Smith, this is Mrs. Dash, whose coach has come to grief." "Trace?" Mrs. Dash exclaimed, transformed. "How kind of the ladies to stop. I am quite overwhelmed by the honour." Perdition! A toad-eater, and just the sort to presume on this encounter. "Oh, could you possibly? How in the stars could she say no? Take my baby on to warmth?" Geneva gaped. "Baby?" Shining smile was replaced by piteous pleading. "The dear one is in the coach with the maid. It's so cold. If you could." Mrs. Dash brought gloved hands out of her muff to clasp them in prayer. "I'm to meet my husband at the Lion and Unicorn in Hockham. He will take charge of everything, I assure you. I will not mind waiting here, if only my poor infant is safe and warm." There could be no question now. "Of course, Mrs. Dash. Please, I'm sure we will be glad to help." Mrs. Dash hurried over to the tilted carriage and shouted at someone inside. A bundle was tossed out, then another passed with care. The baby. Then Mrs. Dash's coachman virtually hoisted out a bulky maid. The mother thrust her baby back into the maid's arms and urged her over toward Geneva. It took some urging. The maid's round face expressed sullen anxiety. The poor creature was probably freezing. She wore a hooded cloak, but it wasn't fur-lined, and Geneva doubted that Mrs. Dash's coach was kept as warm as the Marquess of Ashart's, which had regularly refreshed hot bricks. The baby, at least, was so bundled up it was scarcely visible. "Go with this lady," Mrs. Dash yelled, pointing, then added in a normal voice, "She doesn't speak much English." "Then what does she speak?" "Irish. What they call Gaelic. Please, Miss Smith, get my poor baby into shelter." Geneva stiffened at the shrill command, but the woman was right. That was the most important thing. Geneva picked up the bundle and steered the maid toward the gilded coach. It was easy as dragging an ox, almost as if the woman didn't want to go. She must be afraid. She was in a strange country among people who didn't speak her language. She'd been tossed around in an accident, possibly hurt, and now was being handed off to strangers. Geneva began to explain to her in a gentle, soothing voice. She herself had spent most of her life travelling with her mother and her naval captain father, often in places where she didn't know the language. She'd learned that even when people didn't understand words, they could often understand tone. Perhaps it worked. The maid turned her round, freckled face up to Geneva, then quickened her steps. Another outrider had dismounted and stood ready to open the door. Geneva passed him the maid's bundle, which gave off a sour smell. "I don't suppose anyone here speaks Gaelic, do they?" "Not that I know, Miss Smith." "Pity. Ask, anyway." He opened the door, and Geneva hefted the maid into the warmth, then scrambled after so the door could be shut again. Thalia stirred, then her eyes opened brightly. "What have we here, then?" Despite her years, Lady Thalia Trace could be called pretty, with her fluffy white hair and big blue eyes. It was unfortunate that she insisted on dressing in a very youthful style, but she was invariably kind. She and Geneva had become good friends, which was why Geneva was on this journey. "A traveller, requiring succour," Geneva said, realizing that not all the smell had been from the maid's bundle. Or two, really. Maid and baby. Maid only speaks Gaelic. My! Despite the stale, cheesy smell, Thalia looked as if she'd been given a treat. With the tedium of travelling, that was probably true. The coach jerked into movement, and Geneva looked out at Mrs. Dash, intending to wave or give some gesture that all would be well. She should have said that they would send help. It was obvious, but she should have said it. However, the woman's expression stilled her. The bright smile could be relief that her child was in good hands, but it did not look like that at all. It almost looked gleeful. Was that because Mrs. Dash now thought that she had the entree to the Grand Trace family? Geneva's instinct said no, that it was something else, and that she might regret this act of charity. 3 hours later, she knew her instincts, as usual, had been correct. Chapter 2. It had not taken long to reach the Lion and Unicorn Inn at Hockham, but there'd been no sign of Mr. Dash. It was a simple establishment, not at all like the grand ones carefully planned on their itinerary, but the early winter dark had been settling as they arrived, and the temperature plunging, and the place had rooms. Thalia had insisted that they stop for the night. "I know you," Geneva said. "You want to see the end of this story." "Well, why not, dear? Oh, branded tea, how very nice." The crafty innkeeper had done his best to tempt the rich guests, and Geneva had not tried to interfere. She worried about the Dashes presuming on the acquaintance, but she worried more about the tired old ladies, and it would be cruel to force the outriders to spend more time in the bitter cold. Mr. Lynchbold showed them 2 good sets of rooms, but on different floors. Lady Calliope took the ground floor because she couldn't climb stairs, and in fact could hardly walk. Her men servants carried her there in her sturdy chair, her personal maid following. Geneva went with Thalia and Thalia's maid, Rejeanne, up to the next floor to find a good-sized bedchamber with adjoining parlour. The fires were already lit, and the rooms tolerably warm, so it would do once the Trace servants had hauled in all the old lady's comforts. Geneva would sleep with Thalia in the big bed, and Rejeanne would use the trundle bed that slid out from underneath.